Drop down inwards to your ocean floor. Release. Relax. And listen to the data in your body. Practice world building here first and affirm yourself for a while. Honor your grief. Honor your rage, fear. Honor the knowledge systems and memories that live in you. Pay homage to your lineages. Honor your awakening and your desire for something else.
And there are two ways that a star can die. So stars either collapse because of their own weight. They just collapse onto themselves and then they create a black hole and they kind of swallow all the light and all the energy around them into this big black hole. So that's one way. And you have the second way, which is it kind of implodes in this supernova, which is a huge explosion where it's at its shiniest and like most, it's like such a big event in space, a supernova. And then, that's what's really interesting, is that then you have all these bits, which is bits of gas and bits of the exploded star floating around that form a nebula. And a nebula is a star-forming region, or like a nursery for young stars. So a star can like grow from what remains of another star. And so when I was thinking of that, I was like, we can either collapse onto ourselves because of like growing bigger or whatever, like, you know, what most projects try to do, expand, and then you just collapse and you're just swallowing energy and everything around you with you. Or we can go away in this beautiful, colorful explosion, but remain this like nursery for new stars, like this place where all the conditions and what's left behind allows for other stars to grow. So when I thought about that, I was like, that sounds like a good metaphor. And that's what it means to me. It means like leaving this beautiful, colorful legacy and giving other projects, younger projects, the best like resources that we can, almost being good ancestors in a way, for them to grow from what we leave behind.
Voices that shake in 3 words, I would say emboldening, intergenerational artivism.
Nourishing, uncompromising, and always startling.
Warm and bold and resilient.
Timeless, insightful, community.
Transformative, magical, and powerful.
Youth, community, and radical.
Holding, intentional, and radical.
So many unforgettable moments. Big ones was, I'd say, the Cry launch, the first launch we did. I think particularly because of the circumstances, because we were in lockdown, it was COVID, things were all up in the air. It was our first public event for quite a while, and it was a big effort that the team put together and came together, and we got an audience, and it was so beautiful to see people really shining on stage, sharing what Shake meant to them, and really getting hold of the publications. And and celebration. So that was special. Another big one was the Black Radical Black Cultural Activism Map launch, which we did, and that was with under the title of Rep the Road. So we worked on quite a big production, probably the biggest production we've worked on artistically for Shake, and then to have a big stage to really celebrate our various collectives and really high-end art, and have another huge audience was really special. And I just remember meeting up with people afterwards, and just, yeah, again, sharing celebration and coming together. There's also lots of small moments which I remember, which I still hold, you know, those conversations within the breaks, and wisdom that young people have shared, and you know, real vulnerabilities, which yeah, really kind of a sense of gratitude for all those big and small moments.
I think I just felt in awe of learning stuff that I felt could apply so much to like me personally, if that makes sense. I remember in particular, there was something that Fazana Khan, who was facilitating one of the sessions, said about rest isn't the same as restoration. And like, if you're just, for example, spending all day in bed because you're low on energy, that doesn't necessarily replenish you. And that made me think a lot about myself and how I spend my time, and like what actually restores me energy wise. And yeah, it was very apt for the course of the name. So I think I just felt like in awe of like what I'd learned, and yes, stays with me, will stay with me.
Yeah, I think the newness of Shake was probably the fact that it blended not just the artistic work, but also it was explicitly political. So there were a few projects that were, well, there's quite a few projects that do those separately, but at the time when it originated, 2010, I felt it was very new that Shake was bringing these two elements together, using the arts to be explicitly challenging issues in society, oppressions. And then evolving out of that came the somatic work. So I think that really was new as well, like bringing it into the body and really looking at the impact of what these oppressions have on us, have on our bodies. And so moving with those three really big kind of intentions in the work was really new, I felt.
I think the balance of being able to organize and build a radical world that we want to see, but in a way that really centers doing it in a sustainable way, and centers bringing in creativity, bringing in how our body is feeling, bringing in like ourselves in our entirety, in a way that I feel like shouldn't be rare, but currently feels quite rare. So yeah, I think being able to encounter radical community in that way was truly beautiful.
The proudest moment for me was overseeing Shake's legacy publications. As frustrating as it was to keep changing timelines and plans, I am so proud of all the ways we centered care in the process of birthing the publications. At the height of the pandemic, where it was such a challenge to connect with anyone or anything, with so much state-sanctioned mass suffering surrounding us, we still managed to document a decade of transformative, incredible work on our own terms, with so much care, creativity, intentionality, and genuine collaborations against all odds, which I think is a testament to our deep trust and faith in each other and our commitments to collective liberation.
Shake helped me be a better youth worker. It really expanded my definition of youth work, of what I was trying to do, of these kind of invisible things that I was struggling with within my job. And you know, there are very problematic dynamics within youth work, and like when you're a global majority youth worker, you can't always like name these things, these forces that are almost like against you as you're trying to do things differently, and work with young people like you in a way. And I think Shake really helped me take a step back and look at youth work as like this really political, really systemic thing connected to everything else.
and really advocate for like radical political youth work. And like I said before, with the body stuff, expand my practice of like I'm also working with bodies. I'm working sometimes with like traumatized bodies, with dissociated bodies, like young people who come in from school who are just like have been dissociating all day, who have been asked to dissociate to be productive and to be like efficient or whatnot, and almost trying to repair that. But also just the outside world and what being in this hostile environment does to them and their minds and their bodies. And so, yeah, it's just it expanded and like challenged and made my practice of youth work much, much better. If you want another space metaphor, space is still expanding. You know, they say that space is infinite and it's still expanding, expanding, expanding. And that's actually the ripple effect still from the Big Bang. So we're still like, we're growing because this is still the ripple effect from a huge explosion. So the ripple effect is infinite in a way. So we could say that that's what we want. We want an infinite ripple effect with Shake.
In the context of Shake's clothing, it feels like a kind of metamorphosis, maybe, into like something maybe like bigger, something kind of like fulfilled, something that's like come full circle and like in a very like I don't know, like settled way, which yeah, I think is kind of what's happening the end, the closing of Shake. Like it feels like things have been fulfilled and things have been finished, and it's time to kind of like evolve into something different.
You're saying basically it's the Destiny Fulfilled album.
Exactly. That's the soundtrack that is Shake's closing.
Which was not the best album.
It wasn't, but the title, everything, it lands.
By tending to soil, hands in the earth, listening to its ways, tending to each other, dirt and nails, getting wise to weather, to medicine, root rot, and the soft question, what is needed here?
So thinking about youth work on this land, I have to think about not just this land, but you know the way that my family originated on this land or came to this land and were brought to this land and other lands in the Caribbean. So I think my longing is that these connections are made visible and apparent and not contested, and that we're able to really dialogue with people in the diaspora, people from all lands, and really realize that, you know, these fights that we're facing of climate justice, of war, of shortages in life-giving sustainable systems is an international fight. And so I really long that we are, particularly in the northern hemisphere, that we're informed by and offering true solidarity to, you know, the people on the front lines in the southern world in this. And I guess there's the humbleness that we need to really learn and to recapture and relearn some of the things that we've lost going through the intense capital accumulation and Babylon systems that we have here.
I'm longing for youth work in this land to be committed to kind of creating opportunities for young people that are I'm trying to figure out how to say this, that are kind of driven by young people maybe, or like driven by what they care about, or driven by like their curiosities, rather than preparing them for the world that we're in, which isn't great. So I'm not sure if that's what youth work should be really doing, in that sense of making them kind of like compliant and successful. So I'm hoping that, yeah, youth work can kind of continue to create spaces for young people where they can feel like that's something worth doing, as in like following what they want to do and like their curiosities rather than like becoming better, and like knowing that they have everything that they need and they're fine how they are. I'd love to see the continuation of everything that Shakers embodies, and to me that's recognizing the political lens and context in which we exist, and how that impacts young people. I think then that allows for a space and approach where young people can be more like held and more supported practically. I think both with Shake and with the other youth projects that I've worked on in my life, the aim is always for global majority people to self-determine, to organize autonomously, to decide what is at stake for them and their future and everything. And I think youth work it's important to acknowledge like the racist and classist and colonial history that youth work and social work have. And so the aim, like the dream, is to have youth work that is kind of for young people by young people. I think we want the pressure for change to remain youth-led. And by that, I mean that I want the people putting pressure on the charity sector and the youth work sector to be as young as possible.
Well, is it the right time? Is it the wrong time? I feel that a project that's experimental and that is trying out very different ways of tackling very, very ancient problems should become an institution. So the question for me was, at what point should it decide that it lets go? And it's not even it's not for me to say. It was a team discussion, and it took a while. It took a while. And I feel it is the right time.
As someone who came into Shake later, I've enjoyed seeing the shift in Shake of going from working with young people to then supporting those who work with young people. And I think seeing the kind of two sides to the same coin being acknowledged and work being done on that is so important, because it's amazing to support. The work that Shake has done to support and encourage young people has been amazing. I would love it if projects were like other forms of radical youth work projects would be born, like everywhere in London, but in other places that remind you of Shake a little bit, and that there's this normalization of like this radicalization of youth work, and this message of like youth work is political and needs to remain political. If we could see that, if people were like doing very like political youth work and pushing for very radical community-led grassroots like spaces and actions and stuff, then you're like, oh, what we were pushing for in like 2012, 2014, when we've now normalized it to a certain extent, like we've managed to say like this should be the norm, and that's what you want. Like that's true revolution in a way. Just saying like this thing that you consider impossible is now real.
What I would love people to take away from the continued legacy of Voices That Shake is to be brave and to speak truth to power, even when your voice shakes, to be in a practice of courage and bravery and doing things that are unusual or unheard of. The world needs it. Our political and social climate needs us to be so creative, so imaginative in ways that is going to feel really unknown, in ways that are going to feel really destabilizing and messy and full of unknowns and shadows and contradictions and uncertainties, as well as so much possibility that can only happen in unknowns, and so much innovation and genius and possibility and joys. Um, don't fall down at the first hurdle, because it's a wonderful thing to be able to look at an almost 15-year arc of Voices That Shake. And a lot of the things that are made or sustained or for global majority people are designed not to exist or not to have a life cycle. And so it's really beautiful to see and know that something's had, a good bash and a good time at being brave and doing what Voices That Shake has done.
If you want to know more, go to the Bishopsgate Institute archive in London, where you can go and handle materials, physical materials that were part of how Shake was conceptualized, and also posters and documents and reports and all sorts of things. And I think, again, archives is a radical source of knowledge. It's underestimated. And I think it's a fantastic resource there. So I would say use it.
Never. Shake is never going to leave me, because I didn't want to get too like cheesy about it, but Shake's made me a better person as well. Do you know what I mean? Shake is like so much, like it's part of my personality as well. Like that's where I started writing. That's where I performed for the first time ever. Like I started writing poetry the year that I did my first Shake course. So how can it's part of my identity. So. So many, and half of my friends are Shakers. So yeah.
One of the things that kept me going during the publication process and the pandemic was Mia Mingus's words on leaving evidence. She says we must leave evidence, evidence that we were here, that we existed, that we survived and loved and ached, evidence of the wholeness we never felt and the immense sense of fullness we gave to each other. So I guess my hope is that people, future generations, can see Shake as a perfectly imperfect attempt to do exactly that, to be in the beauty and the absolute mess of our times and still try to build ourselves and our worlds anew.
I think one thing that's always going to stay with me is the relationship that my two children have with Shake aunties. So, they do call them aunties, and I've just been really blessed to have, so many strong, particularly women non-binary, examples of radical love, care, and I think, I think bringing up two boys, that's so important, and I'm really blessed that I've got these people in my life.
I would like to say to the Sheikh family, thank you so much for your trust over the years, for your rallying, for your allyship, for imagining and dreaming with us. Um, a phrase that we use on pretty much every single um, Voices That Shake course was trust the process, trust the process. And thank you for trusting us and walking with us and moving with us. And yeah, just a deep, deep gratitude. And thank you for being committed to our shared and collective liberations that look like many things to many of us.
Draw a deep breath in and count to 3. Relax your shoulders. Exhale into your core. Out for 6. And rest, because you are home.